you started the band some 30 years ago now, did you think you would last this long?
Damn, has it been 30 years? I had this yearning for hitting something real hard, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to be in a band as well. To not have hundreds of thousands of people screaming.
Hi, this is Agent Mel. We're here with our newest person of interest, Lady Emilie Autumn. So, she's a great artist, a multi-talent, and now we'll see what we find when we interrogate her. Hi, it's lovely to have you here.
Wow, this could perhaps be the best interview ever. I've never been professionally interrogated, just in my private life, but...
Well, let's start easy then, as you're such a multi-talent, doing music, writing books, doing your costumes, your makeup, you're pretty much everything. So, could you tell people that don't already know you, which is really bad, introduce yourself a bit, tell a bit about you.
Sure. First of all, it's shameful if you don't already know who I am. But no, many people don't. Shocking. No, actually, that's perfectly understandable because it's a bit strange. But it was also a lot of fun and something for everyone, despite the somewhat dark nature of a lot of the music. So, let us see. I have come to describe it to taxi drivers, like cabs, as glam rock burlesque, which is just, I just come up with words that sound like they would kind of indicate what you're in for. But to you, to be perfectly honest, and to you, it's really become very much just musical theater with inspirations of industrial and rock and metal and classical and all of these things.
So you do perform in a Victorian costume. So what interests us is, what is it that interests you so much about this particular time episode?
Right. I have an odd answer, but it's the truth, is that I, because of my experience in the modern day, obviously, mental health care system, I became very interested in sort of how all of that mess began, like how did we get to this stage in the fields of mental health and medicine in general and all of that. And so that led me back to the Victorian era of that psychology, psychiatry, medicine as we recognize it today was really started in the 1900s, in the 19th century, 1800s. And so it was all about going back to really discover how we got to where we are now, where we're likely to go tomorrow, because history repeats itself. And once kind of my mindset was there, learning so much about sort of what we do is not really so much glamorizing the beautiful civilized things of, you know, the cliche Victorian time and tea parties, because it wasn't actually like that. It's more showing the sort of deep, dark underbelly of the Victorian, particularly British culture, and have a lot of fun with that while also telling this story that I wrote the book about, the asylum book. And then you get into all the other areas that are like, that was the birth of the Industrial Revolution, which carries over into the sound of the music and the kind of percussion. It's factories, it's all of these things that kind of are the landscape to that era that carried over to today. It was the shattering of the class system, which is something that obviously affects everyone today, and that it never really was over. It's still a bit, you know, it's quite there, but that, you know, the sort of working class as we know it, the breaking part of fashion, all of these things that are really not so far away. So I know this was probably a far too long answer, but the interest in it is quite elaborate. But I think it all comes together in the kind of music, like even that's hard to describe, because the influences are not, you know, a particular band I listened to growing up or like a musician I admire. The influences are my own kind of bizarre life, my own autobiography that I wrote that's about these two worlds kind of coming together and colliding through the similarities, and about history and being influenced by that, all to learn and to try to tell a story. And that's the point of all of this, is in the end simply to tell a really good story. That's what happens on stage. That's what the record is. It's a soundtrack.
Actually, you are thinking quite deep, and so are also your albums. They are really deep. So
Thank you.
Fight Like a Girl, which is the title of your new album, you were first calling it Flag.
Yeah,
Which means in German, like
Right.
Flagge zeigen, which means like have a position and really showing it.
That's
So what is for
Right.
you like fighting like a girl? What
Right.
does it mean for
yeah. It was always called Fight Like a Girl. It was funny because it never, it's kind of embarrassing that it didn't, but it never even really occurred to me the acronym of that was FLAG, which is perfect because, we have this flag that we wave on stage that's this sort of iconic symbol of the revolution that we're attempting to show that these girls in the asylum go on. But then someone on Twitter, actually, Twitter Twatter, they posted like that acronym, and I was like, how the hell did I not think of that? So yeah, now it seems all very clever that I came up with it that way, and now it has this meaning.
Well, now the story's out. She did.
I know, I didn't. The fans are the playwrights are a lot smarter than I am, but that's not surprising. What it was all about, and I think this is probably pretty clear, but it's because of one of those very kind of something we've all heard, very cliche sort of detrimental phrases that boys are told when they're young as an insult, that also ridicules girls and makes it very clear from a young age that anything feminine to do with even a reference to the female to boys is this massive insult, that's a shameful thing that tears apart their masculinity, and all of that is like, we want no connection with the female, we want no, and we're a thing that is weak, that is inferior to be ridiculed. Kind of like many things in the Victorian era, this has not changed at all. So that is my attempt through saying that to basically own this really disturbing phrase that we hear as children, to take it back and to make it into a source of strength and power by making it very clear that this is not an insult, this is something very positive. And so it begins with, the first thing is all about the storytelling. So it's about this chapter in my book where the girls find that they can, in fact, finally, after years of torture and abuse, escape from this Victorian insane asylum. And it's when they basically realize, well, the only thing to do now is to eradicate the enemy and take back the asylum so that it becomes the sanctuary that it was always supposed to be but never was. So they go on what's called the Tea Party Massacre, and the clock strikes 4, and it's like, all right, let's do this. And they just go with their own tools of oppression and slaughter the doctors, and it's just simply what has to be done. But yeah, if basically doing that in order to protect yourself, your sisters, your friends, your brothers, your loved ones, your children, whatever, if doing what needs to be done in the most just, fair, that's all that's needed way is an insult, then I don't think that is. And I think the other point in Fighting Like a Girl is that, to me, it indicates not losing your own humanity in the process. It's a way to fight that isn't about, let's go put somebody in front of like military training, in front of some kind of a video game that just is to desensitize you and teach you to just be a cold killer with no consequence to that. Of course, there's always a consequence, but we like to pretend that when people go into war and come back, they're just going to be fine. And it's never really that way. But it's also something about maintaining your individuality in all of this, fighting with alternate means, in my case, words, and also while it applies to both boys and girls equally, this is not about a gender divide at all. And it's amazing that the Playgrats, which is what the audience calls themselves, they absolutely know that. We have a 50% male to female ratio of audience, and I've never had to explain to them that this is not about girls against boys. This is about all of us knowing that what's good for us is good for you, and that will apply to everything from global warming to politics to government to relations in the bedroom, and that's good for all of us. So it's about that, and particularly for girls, to be able to protect yourselves, to be very, very strong and not be forced to lose your femininity in the process. Because I refuse to change anything about who I am in order to be strong and basically a badass in all possible ways.
That's nice. So how do you find your songs, or better, how do they find you?
Very well. Now, it's maybe sounds a bit arrogant, but it's very simple in that, having already written this book, what it's all about is, and what it's always been about, but just baby steps towards this point to like today, is that the music leading up till now has always been about setting the stage, quite literally, for, you know, establishing myself as this personality with these points of views about things, with these stories to tell, with the asylum world, with this kind of show, just introducing this kind of entertainment, which is, you know, serious, but then very ironic, very sarcastic, very vaudevillian and burlesque and funny. And but what now it's led up to is to take the Asylum for Wayward Victorian Girls book and transform it into a full-scale, you know, Broadway-esque musical theater production. So that's what's happening now, is we're going towards, you know, debut in London's West End in 2014 of that book, us as, you know, this 3-hour with intermission Asylum musical with a cast of 40 people. We're a cast of 4 right now, but it's all about telling the story just chapter by chapter to this cohesive, where now when you go into the show, you will be on this journey with us from beginning to end. It's not at all, you know, song by song thing. Everything strings together into this story that you will understand, even if you have no fucking clue who I am, or that all of this is true or really deep or anything. It can just be enjoyed on an entertainment factor, or if you just want to see a bunch of girls running around and corsets kissing each other or whatever. There's kind of something for everyone. And so back to your question, is the songs are very easy to create at this point, in that I'm basically just writing the musical to this book. And so the story is already there because it's been written. So now all of the music is just one tool to serve the story. And my ultimate goal, although I've always been and grown up a musician, is to be a storyteller and to tell the story of not so much me, but this whole world, this landscape that's been created, which, taking myself out of it or pretending it's just fiction or something, the book is really this kind of historical time traveling, suspenseful thriller mystery novel, so it can just be taken in that way. And I hope to translate that to the musical version of this.
Well, in my opinion, you do. But what is your favorite song, if there is one?
There has been, for quite
of your
some
own.
time.
Your
Yes.
own song.
Oh, of course. A favorite song of mine, like most, really would be The Art of Suicide, because it was one of those songs that just sort of under magical circumstances just completely, because I write in my head, not on an instrument or anything, because it's just easier to hear that way, because I just hear everything at once. So it was really just a moment riding in a taxi on the way home from a party that I just was in a very dark, depressed, sort of suicidal place, and I needed to get out of there. I couldn't communicate with people. I got in this cab, and instantly the whole thing was there and laid out in my mind as the ultimate sort of my manifesto on life and death, and the sort of, you know, how in some ways the death, especially in the past, is glamorized, and back in the Victorian era, the whole, you know, obsession with the Ophelia character and all the paintings painted so beautifully of her death and dying, and basically almost making fun of the fact that this has become this theatrical thing even in my own life. So it's like I'm in on the joke, but in the sense it's like when you're in that spot, the question of why live a life that's tainted with pity and sadness and strife, and why dream a dream that's tainted with trouble and less than it seems, and it's just the why bother bothering just for another poem or a sad song to sing. And it's all about that question of, you know, when you answer or ask yourself or ask others, why should I really be here doing this? What is the fucking point of all of this in the big picture of the world? Like, I'm not curing AIDS in Africa. I'm not really, in my own mind, doing anything really more important than just like that much. And so it's just that thing of the answer is always, well, but your songs bring so much to people, or your poetry or something. And while that's lovely to hear, at the same time, it's like, well, what about me? What if I don't enjoy this? And just kind of brings it all into perspective. I know out of context that sounds really dark and makes absolutely no sense, but the fact is, I love that song because all of that is told in a very sarcastic, almost humorous way, and it's one of those songs that I felt, if I never write again after that song, it will pretty much say everything I think about everything, to where sometimes, and this sounds like over dramatic, and it is, but that I would question after that fact, like, should I even really do this anymore? Because there's nothing I can do that can top that one. Of course, I've written a new record, so screw that. There's a lot that is equally as fun and sad, if we want to go that direction. But I've just realized since that time that there's a lot more to fight for, and a lot more hope to be found in all of this, and a lot more fun to be had. And just the constant challenge and my goal in all of this in general, which is to turn very real, dark, negative things about myself, about society, whatever, into not just something that is useful to people or helpful or something, but into something honestly beautiful and, God forbid, fun. And so that's where all of this is going. And for the show tonight, it all goes from a very dark, torturous place to the end, where we're all marching into the future together, and the audience marches with us, and we all realize, like, we are not alone. We never were. We just didn't know it. So now it's like, if you're going to die, just fucking die. But if you're going to live, fight. And that's what this is all about.
So is there also people that have inspired you or do inspire you, and not just time period?
Right. Definitely there are probably so many that it's hard to even really process.
There's someone like, there it is, on the top of the top, just
of that period, or of any?
Of any.
Oh, fucking Freddie Mercury. I mean, seriously. And other people of that genre, of that time.
Quite understandable.
Of like David Bowie and all of that. And it's people that are not only brilliant musicians and writers, but also understood the power of the visual of performance, which is not some side effect to having written an album. You know, I don't tour like to support an album. There's no label, there's no money from the outside. This is all completely done myself with the help of my band and crew and all of that. But
is there anything you don't do? Like, you don't take care of? You do costumes, you do makeup. I mean, you wash them yourselves by hand, I've heard. So
yes, I have messed
music.
up my hands, and the worst, like, don't even look at my cuticles, because like scrubbing them by hand in the bathtubs of any remote hotel that we get to stop in. But no, I don't think that there really is, simply because I've learned that's what makes it so personal, is that while I can have assistance on things, like, I'm not the one, because while I am incredibly strong, the truss system, the risers, everything that we have on stage now, which is kind of a lot, is very heavy. So I'm not the one personally carrying everything upstairs by myself anymore. It used to be that way. And I'm not the one that's, you know, doing the lights. That's the amazing Bo King over there. And I'm not the one booking the hotels and taking care of all of that. But as far as everything, as far as choosing that team that can just geniusly run that part of things technically, is very important. And just as far as anything creative or artistic or visual, musical, anything that goes into this, then of course is done, because there's simply no room for anyone else to do it in. It's the kind of, like, if you can do this, why wouldn't you? If you want something done right, do it yourself, and that still is completely true. So, and it's just the joy that I take in making everything incredibly personal. And I think even for people who may not know how deep all these stories go and how much this means to me, I think that why the following that we do have is very intense and sort of underground cultish sometimes, is, and very, very devoted and loyal, like, to an extreme. It's sometimes very overwhelming, is because at some level, they completely know that this is free, and this comes out of a person very deeply and very personally. It's not spread out through, a bunch of executives or marketing people or even, hair and makeup people, which are excellent, but I think they know that this is extremely personal. I think that's why we have that type of following.
And now, what we all want to know, what's next? What are you up to?
All right. Well, which I know we've already talked about it, so this might be kind of a letdown, but the Asylum musical is what I will be spending the vast waking hours of the
And the
next
movie?
year. Oh yeah, there's that. But what is going to happen with the Asylum film is that would be based off of the musical, which is based off of the book, which is based off of life. So it's all very much like, I hope, cleverly planned out from all these steps into, because the film will of course be a musical as well. So it's about just establishing this as a reality and then taking it to the next level. And the film, of course, we want to save that for last because it's a lot more frightening. You get one chance with that. With a musical, you can at least workshop it for a couple of weeks, and you can at least have multiple performances before it completely fails. With the film, if it fails, that's kind of, you don't get a second chance to try that one out. So we'd like to get some practice on stage, which is ultimately my greatest love, which is theater.
Great, well, then I thank you very, very much for having us.
Would you like to be in the musical?
Of course.
We need, and you as well, and all of you, we need a vast number of inmates. So you'd probably spend most of the time locked in one of the 100 cages that'll be in the back, but you get to be very scantily clad and you get to wear some thigh-high striped stockings.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, very sexy. So I think, and then maybe I will at some point have the opportunity to interrogate you.
Ooh, I don't
Physically.
know.
Yes, think about it.
Of course I will. Well,
You
thank
have a job if you
so
like.
much for having us.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure.
And it's been good having you on our mission, and I hope we'll have you next time because there will be another one. Thank you so much.